Okay, it says there's one person watching and we got one like. Well, now it says there's one person watching and we got 5 likes. Okay, essentially what this video is about is what would it take for you to change any of your beliefs? Politics, religion, really just anything you believe in. What would it take for those beliefs to change? I see this as the biggest problem within humanity. What we learn as children, what we come to believe as children, for so many of us, it seems that there's nothing that can change it over the course of a lifetime, no matter what plays out. You're born into this religion, you stick with this religion. You come up in this household and your parents are into these politics, those become your politics. Nothing really changes it. And, yours truly, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. And, my dad was agnostic, didn't go to church at all. Voted Democrat mostly because my mom also voted Democrat. My mom was more church going, raised Lutheran, very about the Democratic Party. And growing up with that, I probably, in my mind, leaned a little bit more towards the idea of Democrats. But, for example, I've never voted in an election, and the reason why is because before I could even vote, meaning I wasn't old enough, I could see that the whole thing was a steaming pile of BS. That said, even though I had never voted, there was a time when I saw better things, at least in my opinion, coming out of the Democratic Party, and I'm going to get to how those that brief period of my life didn't last for long, but it didn't make me go, oh, well, the Republican Party must be better. It was based on what I saw the Democratic Party do in 2008 that left beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was completely empty and just like the rest of politics. So, again, I'm going to just tell a little bit about my own experience and why I see the way that I behave being a lot different than most people who don't allow evidence to dictate their thoughts, their beliefs. They rather just stay in the lane that they were essentially born into, which, again, I find to be majorly problematic. And if you're one of these people who's just always been going with the same beliefs, the same thoughts, and haven't adjusted anything based on evidence in your world, you might very well be part of a major problem that is taking place in the world. So, to rewind, I was 17 years old in 2000 when the election happened, where Gore beat Bush, until 30 minutes later when Fox News, the channel founded by Republicans, announced that it was too close to call and maybe actually Bush had beat Gore. And I just want to remind people, the whole month before that election happened, all of the national media was saying it was going to come down to Florida, where, of course, George W. Bush, his brother, was the 43rd governor. And then after what happened in Florida, George W. Bush became the 43rd president. A reminder that their daddy was also the 43rd vice president of the United States. And, if you forgot what happened in 2000, the people didn't even decide the election. The Supreme Court stopped the recount in Florida, which made it Bush's election. So I just said, wow, what a sham we live in. What a joke. And again, I've told this story many times. I had a teacher at the time, my senior year of high school, Mr. Griffin, and I suggested to him, it looked like we got rigged elections. It looks like we live in the land of kings and queens. It looks like we got King George II. And his response to that was, Hubbard, you're an idiot. I am? I don't know. It looks pretty obvious to me. And again, it didn't get better from there. 2004. Tim Russert asks on Meet the Press, Bush one week and then Kerry the next. He asked them both the same question. He said, listen, you guys are both in Skull and Bones, a very powerful elite secret society that only allows 15 members per year. Like, what are the odds that we have to choose between two Skull and Bones guys? And they're both like, oh, Tim, love to tell you, but it's a secret society. And again, power of the internet. YouTube wasn't quite out yet. YouTube would launch the next year, 2005, but You can still do plenty of research on Skull and Bones. Not to mention Paul Walker was in the movie The Skulls that came out right before Bush won the election. But I was looking at that in 2004. I used to always make a point to watch Meet the Press when I was younger, and 60 Minutes, and I'd watch PBS for news. I thought those were the best news programs on TV as a young person, and they very, most of the news is complete trash. But I was just blown away. I was like, wow, our candidates are two members of very powerful secret societies. That's what we get to choose from. And before I saw that, I thought John Kerry was running to lose. When I'd watch, I'd be like, how can he not smash Bush in these debates or just like on the talking points? I mean, Bush is a moron. He can't even formulate a sentence. Like, what? Make me the candidate. I'll crush Bush. That was my thinking in 2004. But just such an obvious show. So again, these are the reasons I've never voted. But the reason I held this idea around this time that the Democrats were probably the better party is because the only sensible rhetoric I saw coming out of any politicians were from Cynthia McKinney and Dennis Kucinich, and also Ron Paul, who was Republican, but it was like two decent Democrats and one decent Republican. And not to mention, if you paid attention when 9/11 happened, the laws that were all passed that were the Patriot Act, which built the surveillance state, pretty much all of those laws had been proposed and attempted to pass for about 3 decades leading up to that moment, and almost all of them were authored by the Republican Party. So I said, oh, so it's the Republicans that want this police surveillance state. They're really the police surveillance state party. And maybe that is 100% true, because at the start of this administration, this latest one with Trump, you did have, all the big tech guys behind him talking about the Stargate project, where if you really look into it, Larry Ellison is very much the face of it. And he did say last September that with the new AI technology, they can have a state where everybody has a camera on them at all times, and everything they do is monitored and tracked, and keep everybody on their best behavior. So, which sounds horribly un-American. It sounds totally Orwellian. And it doesn't sound like the land of the free, home of the brave. It sounds like the land of the enslaved under the watchful eye of Big Brother, where the cameras won't be on them. Again, how else would they get away with their lies if every last thing they were doing was tracked? But anyway, the point is, my life has always been based on evidence. And so I came up in this household where my parents vote Democrat, and I'm hearing from my mom just, vote Democrat all the time, and the Republicans are terrible. And, as a 18-year-old, when all this stuff was going down, and it wasn't looking like she was too right, because this police surveillance state, this is bad stuff. It is not America. But then 2008 comes along, right? And all the Democrats are running, well, except for Obama. I was pointing this out. I was public enemy number one at this point in my life, living in Seattle, telling everybody why Obama looked like a total fraud, another corporatist. He was the only one talking about not ending the wars, but a lot of the Democratic Party was talking about stopping the wars if they get into power. So we all know what happened. They got the House, the Senate, the Oval Office, and they escalated the wars. So to me, everybody who was a Democrat up to that point in their life, they should have said, well, wait a minute. My political party is obviously full of shit. We have all branches of government, and we're not following through with what the majority of us were voted in for. Because this was the will of the Democratic side of the aisle, to end the wars. And they escalate them. They make it even more. More troops deployed, more drone bombings than ever, more money spent on the war. The exact opposite result. And yeah, I just don't know how anybody could ever vote for the Democratic Party again after that election. But also, I mean, you have all these examples in history even before that. Who's still voting Republican after Ronald Reagan? And how is it that Reagan finishes his presidency and goes pretty much the exact opposite of everything he said he would do? And then growing up in my era, everybody would say Reagan was the greatest president ever. And it's like, based on what? He said he wanted to make government super small so he could drown in the bathtub, and he made it way bigger than any president before. He created way more spending than ever. They had to dip into Social Security and again, just all kinds of craziness in the time of the Reagan administration. And so it's like, how can that be the greatest president? Somebody who does the exact opposite? It boggles my mind how people are so into these political parties that pretty much never deliver and at a very high rate go against the exact opposite of what they preach on the campaign trail. You know, George W. Bush, Bush Jr., King George II, he said no nation building, and then they did a lot of nation building in the time of his administration. He said that was the worst thing about his dad's administration, going into the Middle East and the nation building. Ends up doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? I don't know how anybody can be so passionate about these parties. And really, at the end of the day, I suppose a major thing that keeps people lined up left and right is just the whole thing of abortion. Are you pro-life? Are you pro-choice? And why? Why does that make you go out and vote for a political party? That should not be a reason to support either party. All they use that for is like a fisherman uses a worm. You know, this group of fishermen, they like to use this kind of bait over here, and this tribe of fishermen over here, they use this bait instead. And it just keeps the fish coming on both sides. They're getting all the rainbow trout over here, and they're getting all the sockeye salmon over here. It's no reason to go out and vote. And they're just playing games, too, with the whole abortion thing. And that should have been very obvious when they overturned Roe v. Wade on Freemasonry's birthday, which is also John the Baptist's birthday. Baptisms, babies, D.C., the Masonic city, the two pillars of Masonry. They got some people going to the blue pillar over here, some going to the red one over here, and this is how they keep them entrenched in their sides. It should be painfully obvious how the game is played to keep America divided and more divided as time passes on. By the way, anyone can go back and watch and see what I said in February of 2016 about why they were going to pick Trump for Super Tuesday and install him as the president, because that's all they really want in America, just more and more divided and polarized people, and Trump is the absolute greatest polarizer we've ever seen on the political stage, especially in the Oval Office. That's why he's the chosen actor, which he is. Long history in Hollywood, long history with the WWE. That's why he is the chosen actor to polarize the nation. Because, again, in a way, it's like the average person, if they'd known they'd been in the media for the last 4 or 5 years over this insurrection, they can't go on TV and talk about insurrectionists rising up in Los Angeles with a straight face. I mean, most of us, we just couldn't do it with a straight face like Trump can deliver it. Trump is an actor. He is a trained actor. I think that's the main qualification to be in the White House. And I'm pretty sure Biden was putting on an act, acting more senile than he actually was for the last 4 years. Is all part of the joke as well. That's why some days he was sharp as a tack. Remember when he delivered that 666 line? He's like, it doesn't matter if it's 6 years, 6 months, or 6 days. He said it like he'd never been, more confident. It's like, oh, nice 666 delivery there, Joe. What happened to Slow Joe? That wasn't the script that day. But anyway, just this whole thing about just being stuck in your beliefs. Well, I believe that this party's still better. How can you possibly believe that? They're totally empty on their rhetoric. Both are selling us down the drain. This whole thing about, Trump's administration being fascist, it's kind of annoying too, because since when hasn't our government been fascist? Again, look into what fascism was coined as by Mussolini, who invented the term. The merger of corporation and government. When has that not been America? A totally fascist nation. It's always been government and corporation. Republican Party, majorly backed by Walmart. Democratic Party, majorly backed by Costco. It's just, and a million other corporations too, but I'm just making the point. By the way, if I was in office, I think a law I would propose is that big trucks, I don't care how slow the next big truck in front of it's going, you just got to stay in the right lane all the time, big trucks. Don't you guys hate when, this is a road where everyone drives 80. These big trucks are going 60. The big truck in front of them is going 59, so they're going to cut over in front of an 80-mile-an-hour car so they can speed up and go 61 instead of... It's just like, just stay in the damn lane. That should be a law. Big trucks stay in the right lane all the time. You can't even come over. You're just in the right lane unless the lane's obstructed from an accident. That's the only exception. I feel like that should be a law. By the way, and just about these political parties, have you ever heard a politician ever talk about breaking up the monopoly of cable companies? How they all take their own market. Spectrum's got this market. Comcast has this market. Cox has this market. Well, why doesn't that ever come up on the campaign trail? You know, almost everybody has cable, and we're almost all getting raked over the coals for our cable prices because there's no competition between any of the big providers. Why is that? See, this is why, to me, that would be a great idea to run on. Because we're like, listen, I'll get your cable bill down to $20 a month instead of probably the $200 you're paying right now, just like they pay over in Europe. They pay jack shit, and they get way more channels in Europe. Did you know that? Supposedly communist Europe, where everything's so much worse. Meanwhile, the people aren't fat and obese. Their food's way healthier. They don't get raped on their cable bill. Again, America's probably the worst country on earth right now out of all the modernized industrial West in terms of just everything. Literally everything. Just the dumbest people, the least healthy, dying from the most preventable disease and illness, and paying the most on cable by a million miles. Yeah, there's a reason no politician ever brings that up, because there's only certain things they're allowed to talk about. Keep everybody fighting over pro-life, pro-choice. How come there's no conversation about making a better country where women don't feel the need to have to abort? Pretty much, I don't think any woman wants to do that. They do that because they feel like they have no hope of raising a child in this world, especially as expensive as things become. Why not just create better programs or figure out ways to, again, like I said, make it so that women don't feel the need for abortion. And I understand that some people are responsible, but yeah, it drives me nuts that people continue. I'd say if you boil it down for the actual voter, the reason they keep these two corrupt parties in power is because they're coming out to vote for the abortion issue. So you're keeping these horribly corrupt, evil politicians and political parties where they are over this issue, which is kind of a dumb thing to vote on in the first place. And for anyone who thinks that's not the case, I mean, really think about it. Are you sure it's not a dumb issue to vote on? And to be fair, you know, the one thing the left's right about the people who vote pro-life, the pro-life people, like look at the Caitlyn Bennett of the world. Look at her when she goes to these things where people are pointing out all the dead Islamic children from what's going on over in Gaza. She doesn't even care. She's like, It's like, oh, I thought you care a whole bunch about human lives. You don't care about all the brown children getting blown up for no reason right now? It's weird. And that's always kind of been the conservative side of the aisles thing. They don't really care about people who are born. Children, they didn't care about all the Iraqi and Afghanistan children getting blown up. All the stories about, whoops, the U.S. military accidentally bombed another wedding. Oh, they thought it was a terrorist hangout. It was just a wedding. They didn't care about all those lives. Brown Muslim lives don't matter. So yeah, that's why the whole pro-life mantra for most of these people is a load too, and that is just being fair and accurate and correct. But yeah, no, I do think abortion is definitely a sad issue, and I think most of these mothers, if they could see the future beautiful baby that was going to come out and how much happiness that would bring them, they'd probably follow through with it. But I understand that this is a messed up world, and there's not a lot of people who care about other people. And anyway, but coming just back to this thing about people being locked into their beliefs and not letting evidence dictate their thinking, but instead their beliefs and what they were taught as children, essentially never graduating from their childhood upbringing. Religion. It's just like religion, just so elementary too. Almost everybody is locked into the religion that they were born into. And some people do grow beyond their religion and say, oh, I don't really believe in that anymore, and they typically don't jump into another religion. But it's just another thing where it's like, how don't more people see through this game, the religion game? You can't see that if you were born over in this part of the world where that's the dominant religion, that's what you would believe in? You might also be like demonizing the religion that you're now a part of because you weren't born here in this culture with this religion. Why is that so hard to grasp? And why do people continue to fight over religion? Without religion, how do the warmongers start all these wars all over the world? It's like to start a fire, you need kindling, right? You need a spark. To start a war, you pretty much need a religious division. That's what we've seen all throughout history. You don't have the religious division, you can't really start the war. Why can't we evolve past religion? And that's not some endorsement of evolution. People should look into the first scientific proof of evolution. Piltdown Man admitted to as a scientific fraud after 41 years. Of course, you learn gematria, you realize Piltdown equals 41, and you realize there's a lot of things that are special about that 41 number, like why the Jesuit suppression lasted 41 years, and why this nation was created in that time, the land of 13 stripes, 13 colonies, 13 years of public school indoctrination. Of course, 41's the 13th prime. But anyway, yeah, just religion, it's so maddening too. You take away the religion, it becomes a lot harder to start wars. And you see it's crazy because differences in religious opinion really breed a lot of hatred and intolerance. Oh my God, that person doesn't believe the same thing I was born into because they were born into something else? Yeah, it's pretty easy to understand why, isn't it? I mean, you see how it took over your mind as a young child and how you couldn't grow out of it. Why do you think it's any different for them over there? Yeah, just again, and that's what people really need to understand is the things that are done to us as children are so powerful. You grow up in a household where your parents drink Pepsi and Pepsi's around all the time. You probably think Pepsi's better than Coca-Cola, or vice versa. And by the way, you shouldn't be drinking any of that sugar water crap. It's all toxic. It's horrible for you. It's a leading cause of diabetes. It's a leading cause of a lot of preventable disease and illness. Almost every time I see super obese people in the grocery store, their carts are just stocked with soda. And that's because you're just drinking sugar all day. And most people have these lifestyles where they hardly move their body. It's like why when you're a child, you can drink a soda and go run around. Well, children don't run around and play anymore. That's why you see obese children. But I didn't like soda when I was a child. I didn't like the way it felt in my throat. So I rarely ever had it. And I, from a young age, I didn't understand why people were so fixated on it. But sometimes, like I liked cream soda. If somebody had a cream soda, I'd drink the cream soda. But I was always, cream soda would be like a hot day, running around at the park, burning the calories off. I mean, the rare exception, you have a soda. You should probably do at least an hour of exercise afterwards. Anyway, I'm just making the point about even that, those kind of things. You grow up with a certain one, it becomes the best one. It's the superior one. And you see how when you drive around, they market these products to people. You're driving to a restaurant, pizza place, they have a big Coca-Cola sign on the window, Pepsi sign, whatever. Oh, I'm going in there. I need my fix. It's everything. They got a nation of addicts, too, addicted to all this junk food. And that's the thing, too. Just your country, right? Believing that your country is so great and every other country is so bad. And isn't that almost what everyone falls back on at this point? It's like people kind of know America is a disappointment. And then but it's a lot better here than everywhere else. And then you say, well, what other countries do? Well, none. I went on vacation for a week to Mexico. I went to Spain for... It's like, okay, so you haven't even been around the world, but you know your country is the greatest. Okay. Yeah, another belief. I had a rare experience in my life of managing an autistic children's home. And for whatever reason, the place that I worked at, I wasn't responsible for the hiring. I just had to, help out with the children, obviously, and the employees. Those were my responsibilities. I didn't do the hiring. But for whatever reason, almost everybody who was hired there, maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, about half the employees hired there were people who came over from Africa. So I got to work with a lot of Africans, and all but one was very disappointed with living in America. And the one who liked America, he adopted to the hip hop culture, and he was really into the music. And he also had the worst attitude out of all the rest of the people were really nice, kind, sweet people. And they were disappointed in America. They all kind of had the same sentiment that people weren't that friendly here. They got a lot of strange looks. And I'd imagine, I haven't worked there for years now, but I would imagine that probably all of those people, except for the one guy, have gone back to Africa. There's also a documentary that came out about Africans who won a lottery, who were living in a refugee camp. There was 5 of them to come to America. All 5 in that movie end up going back to Africa. And they were saying the same things as the employees I had. That just, people weren't that friendly in America. Strange looks, and kind of makes sense, right? Because in this nation, a lot of racial programming. So, you think about the one religion that was born in America, at least the one that I'm aware of, Mormonism. They want to be called Latter-day Saints now, but again, that religion even teaches that the closer you are to God, the whiter your skin becomes. Just inherently racist religion. It comes with white magical underwear. But yeah, just this whole belief system that your country's so great. It's like, what is so great? What makes America the greatest country? We have the most powerful military. I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing that. If that's the way you rank a country, by the most dominant military in the world, sure, America's the greatest country because it has the most dominant military and has killed a lot of people all over the world in the name of America saying that, that's what America wanted. We didn't like your government that you chose over there for your people, so we went in and killed that leadership. I mean, we're number 1 on the leaderboard in that category since in the time of our existence. But is that great? Is that great that America thinks it's so superior that you can go in and kill other governments and its people? And again, you look, I mean, Revolutionary War, that's what we fought against other white people, but since then, has there been any, Civil War, I guess it was our people against our people, but pretty much every other war, we're fighting brown people. We're killing brown people all over the world. Kind of looks like it has a lot to do with race, doesn't it? The nations we go in and kill. I'm trying to think. There might have been another exception here and there where we interfered. I know that we got involved in some of those Eastern Bloc wars in the 90s as the Soviet Union fell apart. And again, someday it's going to be the same thing in the United States. What you watched happen with the Soviet Union and now how some of those nations are warring with each other, it'll be the same thing in the U.S. someday. The U.S. broken up into smaller nations, and then those nations skirmishing with each other. The People's Republic of California versus the Starmen of Texas. Yeah, I don't know how many of us will live long enough to see it, but it's inevitable. The banker tyrants that control this nation, when it's time to break it up, because it's the next most feasible war. That's what it'll be. But yeah, I mean, seriously, like, what is great about America? It's 2025, you guys. Are you seeing something different than me? When I go outside, I see a lot of fat people everywhere. In the 90s, it was that Bruce Willis movie, and I see dead people. Now it's I see fat people. Is this a sign of greatness? Obesity everywhere? Land of the free, home of the brave. We shouldn't be allowed to use that anymore because we're terribly not free. We're terribly not brave. I mean, just a few years ago, it was hard to find anybody outside who didn't have a diaper over their face. It's never been the land of the intelligent, but if it was ever that, we'd have to retire that too, because if you thought a cloth diaper over your face was going to protect you from anything, you were surely a moron. So a lot of fat morons, and that was the thing I saw a lot too, just horribly fat people who obviously don't care about their health or well-being, but then they're even outside with these cloth diapers on. It's like, well, you don't even care about health. I mean, why are you worried if you do? I guess people, if obese or not, you don't want to die, and that's what they were telling you on the news, right? Put on your cloth diaper or you might die. But yeah, if you're so worried about death, don't you have a mirror in your house? I mean, God, it looks like a lot of these people, they're like in their 20s, and I'll be surprised if they make it to 30 as fat as they are. But seriously, again, come back to the question. What is so great about America? Is it that your government lies to you every day? Because it does. Is it that your news media lies to you every day? Is it that, you want to grow some plants with some nice crystally things on them, and most states still can't, and you could end up in a cage? Is it that you came from the nation that produced Reefer Madness, total propaganda piece? The one drug they let you have is the one that makes people rage out and beat their wives and not be able to control their car. And how many deaths a year do we have from people driving drunk? And don't forget, they ended prohibition by the numbers too. Alcohol equals 33, like prohibition ended in 33. Yeah. All right. I got to my destination earlier than expected, but who I have to meet here is not here, so I'll keep Babylon. But yeah, I can't stand when I hear people talk about how America's the greatest country and it's better than everywhere else. It's like, based on what? Based on what? Where you been and what determines a great country? How many people even know their neighbors anymore or have a relationship with their neighbors? Most people don't even like to communicate to anybody. They don't trust their neighbors. Is that a sign of a good country? You don't even want to communicate with your neighbors because you don't trust them. You don't even know who your neighbors are because you don't even talk to them because everyone's so antisocial now. Is it that there's pharmacies all over the nation and 2/3 of the nation's either on an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, or antipsychotic? Is that the mark that we're a great nation? Like, what are your beliefs based in? Are they based in reality? I want to see the stats for the world. And are we the most medicated nation in the world? Are we the most medicated nation in the world? I bet we're pretty high on the list. I bet in terms of deaths from preventable illness, we're very high on that list. Obesity, I know we're very high on that list. Medicated, I'm pretty sure we're going to be way up on the list. So, are those markers of the best nation? And then the other thing that's maddening too is, somebody like me, who I'd say I'm one of the sanest people living in this country. I'm not fooled by the propaganda. I don't fall for the bullshit. I've always done well for myself. I've never needed handouts from anybody. Ever since I turned 18, I've been accused of being mentally ill by the same people who fall for all the bullshit. Because I don't fall for the bullshit, I get accused of mental illness. When I questioned the way the towers fell on 9/11, people said I might be schizophrenic. Like, huh. So recognizing that the physics don't make sense in the 9/11 story is schizophrenia, according to the people of this greatest nation on earth. For seeing through Cooties 19, I got accused of similar things. And by the way, I was right, wasn't I? I mean, I put out a book at the beginning of the scam, and I said they're going to wind their scam down when the year of the tiger comes around. That's exactly what they did. I tell people those pokey-dokes were going to be definitely harmful. They were. Again, that's everything I know about this nation, for being consistently right about pretty much everything that's mattered. Whether I was talking to Obama people about how their candidate was a total phony and fraud, and all you had to do was look into his voting record as a state senator in Illinois. Just all these things that I've driven people nuts about. I think a lot of people have come around to the fact that 9/11 was an obvious lie. People who weren't born in the United States of America, you survey people from outside of the country, almost everybody outside of America knows that 9/11 was a lie. And most of y'all had the right intuition that it looked like the U.S. was behind the destruction. Just an excuse for them to go to war again. Hey, guys, my phone overheated. It's on the windshield, downside of the phone car streams. But anyway, just so it doesn't overheat again, I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, seriously, if anybody is offended by anything I said, please just let me know. Let me know any of these things. Like, how can you still believe in these empty political parties? Religion, I mean, give me a break. Grow up. And your country being so great, I mean, tell me about it. Tell me about it. So I'm gonna wind it down here before the phone overheats again. But yeah, I'd love to hear, why can you not escape your beliefs? And why can't you just be an evidence-based person? Why can't you be a logical person? Why can't you be a more intelligent person? Why can't you help not be part of the problem? Because politics is super problematic. Religion is super problematic. Blind patriotism to a totally bankrupt nation that prides itself on military and killing people. I mean, how don't you see the problem in that? It's ugh. Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. Thanks everyone who hit the like and the share, and until next time.